Liliane De Vries with Alive in Healthcare. And today we've got at the topic of what do nurses really want? Very interesting topic, and we're going to get deep into it. We have here today Amy Jolie, has been an RN for 26 years and has left the bedside nursing to go into school nursing about 14 years ago. More recently, she became a dual board certified nurse coach, serving at the individual and organizational level. And she helps leaders, parents, and teens disconnect from stress, doubt, and overwhelm to claim hope, confidence, and joy. Just a small task on her hands. Welcome.
Yep. And thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, great to have you here. And then we have Nicki Elwood. And she's been an RN for 22 years with 27 years experience in women's and children's health and the ER. In 2021, Nicki became a board certified nurse coach and has started her own private nurse coaching practice with a focus on nurse overwhelm and burnout. Nicki helps nurses find work-life balance and reduce anxiety and overwhelm. Oh, we all want a dose of that. Welcome, Nicki.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you. So yeah, today, what do nurses want? Well, I've done a bit of research on it, and I'll share that as well, but I'd love to hear from you guys what your experience has been with your colleagues and what you're hearing out there and the clients that you're working with. Do you want to start maybe, Nicki? I'll invite you in first.
It cut out a little. Did you say me?
Yes, I did say Nicki, yes.
Okay. I was like, oh, was she saying my name?
Yeah, so what's your experience been?
My experience has been bedside. I've worked on many levels of healthcare and nursing, from bedside to management. And my experience is, for one, we all know the staffing shortage, but that just creates this sandwich effect with the entire healthcare system. The nurses feel like they're stuck between the middle management and their families. The management feels like they're stuck between the nurses and the higher management, and it just kind of is this cascade effect from our model of healthcare that we have going on. That's basically corporate America. It's a business.
And you've been at all those levels.
Yes. And I felt that the same feelings with different roles. Just feelings of there's not enough hours in the day. I have too many tasks to try to accomplish well. And I don't like the way that it makes me feel not doing things well. I felt that way in management. At the bedside, I felt that way when I knew the patients needed and deserved better care, but I was just doing my best, keeping my head above water, doing the tasks at hand and checking all the boxes that were required. So yeah, that's a really heavy feeling when you go home every day and you don't feel like you've done everything that you can, but you still don't feel like you did your best because it wasn't something that you were capable of accomplishing.
Yeah. So I'm pretty clear on what you didn't want. That's for sure. I'm pretty clear that you didn't want all those tasks and the lack of time and maybe the lack of maybe an acknowledgement of what you were doing. And what did you want at that point? What do you think the nurses in general want?
I mean, if you ask them right off the bat, they're going to say, I want more nurses.
Sure.
But really what that comes down to is I want to be heard. I want my concerns to be heard, and I want the concerns I have for my patient care to be heard. I want to feel safe in my work environment, whether it's safety for my own license or safety for my actual safety, or safety for the patients. Ask me again. Like I kind of can get lost in that. Like I could talk about it a while.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a bit like, asking for more help, asking for more money in the healthcare system, asking for, our safety, etc. And those things are not something that they can get overnight, or that,
Right.
we may not be able to get in the very near future. So what is it that you see maybe that they want, knowing that, what do you think they might want in the interim, at least
I've
that they might have control over?
the I don't know that they all recognize necessarily what they really want is control over their own
Mm,
body and mind.
mm, mm,
Control over their own uh thoughts when they go home, the ability to leave it at work and come home and not have it be with them,
mm.
and have the worry or the guilt or the all the things that go along with nursing with them when they're with their family, so they don't feel completely present.
Right. And
And that
so,
is something they totally have control over. It's just not, it takes bit more, a little more deep thought to kind of come to that.
yeah, a consciousness actually that, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Well, and when you think about where you were when you were at the bedside, when you were in management, etc.,
Mhm.
did you feel, because of the overwhelm that you were in, that you were disconnected actually from your mind and body?
In management, I felt very disconnected. No matter how much I wanted to be connected to my staff, I felt disconnected.
Mm,
I felt like I had so many tasks that I did not appreciate them well,
mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, I had so many things that I had to, I'm frozen. Are you frozen?
No, you're good.
Um, there were so many things that the boxes had to be checked in order for me to even keep my job, that all the things that I actually really valued got shoved aside,
Mm-hmm.
like honoring people's time and, um, you know, just things that you do on a human level
Yeah.
to pay appreciation and thank you to people
Mm-hmm.
and serve them. I wanted to be a servant, but I just literally didn't have the capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were longing for the human connection. You were
Yeah.
longing for the connection to even yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Thank you.
felt like I was doing myself a disservice and I was doing them a disservice. It felt
Yeah.
really unhealthy.
Yeah. And I'll get back to you after we talk to Amy, about how you actually overcame that and how
Hmm.
you actually help others overcome that. So
Yeah.
we'll come back to that, but let's kind of get to the topic now. Thanks, Nicki, for sharing that. Amy, what's your take on this?
So I have a similar background. I've worked at the bedside, I've worked in leadership, I've worked, with global nurses, being active duty, serving. I've worked with nurses around the globe, and it feels like it's a similar circumstance. Healthcare has changed over time, especially in the United States. It has become more business-like versus patient-centered. And what I see my nurses and my leaders struggling with most in my coaching practice is that you all mentioned that they don't feel heard. They don't feel connected to themselves and to their calling. But I also see that they don't feel valued by their organization. And then because they don't feel connected to themselves, they also don't feel valued. They don't feel like they're valuing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the struggle is, well, we'll get to the solutions, but the struggle is, it's like, I had a leader that I was having a conversation with last night, and she said, it's like a vice. You're being squeezed from all sides. When you're in leadership, you have the same feelings that nurses have. You want to be connected to your staff. You want your voice to be heard. You want your patients' care to be top notch. That's why we all entered nursing. But because of the requirements of healthcare as it has changed, that is becoming more and more difficult. The amount of paperwork, the amount of, documentation that needs to be done, the amount of things that need to be done perfectly versus good enough. The ability to prioritize your day and your tasks has become very challenging for nurses at all levels.
Yeah, very true. And you're kind of pointing to, when we don't get what we need on a human level, we turn and blame the next person up, or we turn and blame the next person down, or whatever, whatever direction somebody's standing there, that's the person we blame, right? Because we're trying to soothe our own pain. And that's what I've noticed a lot with the nursing. So, what do you think they actually want? Just like Nicki said, it's great. Give me the safety, give me the nurses, give me, acknowledgement, etc. Deep down, what do you think they're actually looking for on a human level?
I think nurses want to be able to do the job that they felt called to do when they entered nursing, to feel like they are an effective advocate for their patients. They are an effective advocate for, their unit, to just have their voice heard and be valued. And they want to be able to do their job without some of the requirements.
I'm not sure I understand.
The requirements of, management and being on call all the time and being able to advocate for themselves.
Right. And is that possible? Can we give them that?
I believe so. Absolutely.
In what way? Like, I mean, how can we give them that when we're in such overwhelming shortage?
So if we're going to start to talk about solutions, I believe it starts, you have to start at with a multi-level game plan. You can't just start in one place because it is a multifaceted problem. We have to start with each individual nurse and empowering them to feel like they can put boundaries in place around their personal life, around their patient care, and be able to advocate for their patients. And then I also feel like we need to support our middle managers who are being squeezed in the middle by the corporation and leadership above them, and then the nurses below them who are overwhelmed. I think that's the only way it's going to help. And then support and help our upper management see what's truly going on, what the nurses truly see. The nurses want nothing more than to be able to effectively take care of their patients and do the best possible job they can. Everyone has that same goal, I believe.
Right.
Some other levels also have the goal of making money, but ultimately we want our patients taken care of and to be advocated for and to do the best job we can, in a financially, fiscally responsible way and not wasting resources, whether it's people or things. But I totally believe we can do that, but it's going to be a challenge.
So what do they have control of today? What does a nurse personally have control of today? And you can both jump in here, whoever wants to speak up.
I feel like I've been talking for a while, so I'll be brief and then let Nicki fill in, but I believe they have control over themselves. They have control over their boundaries and their awareness of where they are health-wise, mentally, physically, emotionally.
Yeah. And for you, Nicki, what do you
I would definitely echo the same exact thing. That's what I found in my practice is when I'm coaching nurses, the exhaustion that they explain just from the communication from their facilities, it's emotionally exhausting. So setting up some boundaries and also some new mental habits around how that's affecting their mental health, and learning new ways to process that information without feeling that fatigue or that frustration or all those negative emotions that come around with that kind of communication that's coming at them all the time. With that also being said, it is a boundary issue a lot of times, and I work with my nurses to figure out what that means for them. Like, if this is a boundary issue for you and you say that yes it is, then what does that mean? How do we put up some type of safety around you for your own mental, physical well-being, spiritual, emotional, your whole being.
Yeah.
How do we, nurse the nurse?
Yeah. Yeah,
Basically.
and I'm hearing really taking control of what they have control over, but I'm really hearing
Mhm.
empowering them first on an individual
Mhm.
basis. I just wanted to touch
Yeah.
on a couple of points here. A couple of things that were said. Well, in my experience, having done nursing circles and having worked with nurses, in this place and taking them off their floors for, a short period to be able to participate in these coaching circles that we had, what we discovered was that, first of all, there was a place for them to vent. Before they could listen, they needed to dump, they needed to vent. So that was one thing that we provided, was a place for them to vent and take it out on everything they thought their professional body expected of them, what their organization expected of them, what their patients expected of them, and all these things that they felt they were just being pulled, right? And then we went to the place of, what do they want? And there was a total silence in the room when that question came up, because nurses were like, they knew what they didn't want, but they didn't know what they wanted. And at the end of our, research of doing this with nurses, we discovered the response was, I just want to be able to complete my shift, go home, and feel like I have just done the absolute best I could do under all these circumstances.
Mhm.
And not carry the shame, the guilt, the blame, the sorrow, even the disappointments, all those negative emotions that they carried when they went home, and actually just dump it out on their families. And of course, that just created more chaos in their family, in relationships, everywhere, because they were exhausted and they were just carrying all this stuff. So, and I want to go back to one of the things that you said, Amy, about, patient-centered care. One of the things that we developed at Alive in Healthcare was the concept of not just patient-centered care, but it starts with relationship-centered care. And the relationship-centered care meant, first, my relationship with myself, and then with others. So what's the impact I'm having with others and on myself? What are those, and realizing that at the end of the day, if I have control of my thoughts, my negative thoughts and my positive thoughts, and how to approach things the best I can, then I can walk away as a hero for my own life, right? And the life of the others that I'm looking after. So your thoughts on that? I mean, I'm just, I kind of bombarded you with a couple of things there, but what are your thoughts around that?
I mean, that hit the nail right on the head. Nurses want to feel connected to themselves, connected to their patients, connected to their unit, to their leadership. And that is relationships.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like,
Yeah. And we don't start with ourselves. We're constantly putting it out there. Like go back to the original statement that I made, that we're blaming everybody else around us, and it's nobody's fault but theirs, and as long as we put blame, nothing gets resolved. I mean, nurses, healthcare people in general, everywhere, but let's talk about nurses right now, have been bitching and complaining about everything for years and years and years. And my big question is, how is that working for you?
How much longer are we going to be the victims, is what you want to ask?
Absolutely, Nicki. And we are victims of our circumstances. Absolutely. But do we want to play the victim of our circumstances, or do we want to take charge of what we do have, control over? And
we don't have to agree with what's happened,
right,
but we have the ability to rise above that and be empowered and find the right ways to carry forward and still be able to practice as nurses.
Yeah, that's great. Well said. Amy, maybe we can start with you, with, when you felt that burnout and the overwhelm in your profession. How did you handle it? How did you discover that there was actually another option?
Um, Honestly, it's a lot of self-reflection,
Mm,
just awareness of where you are. And then, like you said, what you want. It's really easy to identify what we don't want, but actually sitting with that question, what do I want? And then what am I going to do about that? What action am I going to take from that? That awareness for me was pivotal in me determining to um, leave the bedside, start working, at a school because it fit my family life better, and then open my own coaching practice and still supporting others who are struggling with that.
yeah. Yeah. Nice. And you, Nicki? You're on mute right now. Yeah. So how did you figure it out? Like what happened? Is there a story there that says,
For me, um, I'm stubborn enough that I probably would have just stuck it out.
oh,
But my body was like, you can no longer
mm,
sustain this kind of torture. You know, not only
torture.
is bedside nursing is very physical, but I mean, we can look at the science and know that our emotions are really affecting our bodies as well. So not only was I inhabiting this, I have a genetic condition that really affects my joints. I was just like suffering from that because our workload was so high, but also my emotional load from everything I had carried as a nurse and everything that has happened in healthcare was also, I mean, very clearly affecting my physical state. And so that's where I started reflecting a lot as well, just like Amy said. I started looking around and Googling, like, what the heck am I going to do with myself if I can't work at the bedside? But like, I literally physically can't hang. So like, now what? What does that mean for me? Because I'm the breadwinner of my family, essentially, like I'm the person who's carrying the insurance and all the financial worries that you have when you're like looking at move potentially maybe even moving out of nursing because you're just like done. I had lost my smile. Like that's
Mm,
where I started to get very concerned as I literally, that's the only way I could describe it is I I had lost my smile. Like I couldn't
mm,
smile anymore. And I didn't feel depressed. I just was like everything felt so heavy.
yeah.
So
Oh,
physically,
yeah.
mentally, just everything. So that's where I started doing a lot of reflecting simply because I was laid up in my bed and I had nothing else to do. That's
Yeah.
why I'm saying, like, I would not have probably done it except that I had physically been forced to by my
Mhm.
own body, which
Yeah.
is where a lot of nurses find themselves. Um, and so that's where my journey started, honestly. It was probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're pointing to is really in asking,
Mm.
nurses like, why do you stay in your profession or, what else? And the response is, I don't know how to do anything else. I don't know what I would
Yeah.
do. Right. It's like, I can't just step away from something if I don't know where I'm going. Right.
Hmm.
And so
It's real scary.
oh, terribly scary, especially if you're the breadwinner, and you've
Yeah.
got children at home and all that kind of stuff, right?
Hmm.
And your health. Yeah, it's the question I don't want any nurse to ask themselves is, how much more can I take? And it's like, you don't want to know that. Let's just
That's
make
what I was asking myself.
yeah, yeah, and then surely, you get an answer. And that's not where you want to be. So I think what we're coming down to is it's almost like a statement of, if we could put a one-liner around what nurses want, what do you think that would be? If it's just a one-liner and about themselves, really, what would that be? It's so interesting to, even after we discussed it, it's sort of like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
To narrow all that down into one sentence does seem challenging,
Yeah.
but I think it all boils down to what nurses want is to be able to do their job, their calling, the best way possible, for themselves, for their patient, even for their unit and their organization. People enter nursing because they are caregivers, they are givers, they truly want to see people rise up from whatever it is that they're struggling with. That's not one sentence, but
No,
I know that's why I was like, ooh, I don't know if I can say this in one sentence.
Yeah,
and
just to be able to fulfill their calling, I guess, to the best of their ability.
To the best of their ability, and I might add something to that and be at peace with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really the ultimate. Like, I did it the best of my capacity, but I can still be upset and I can still be whatever. But I think the piece there is to be at peace with that, to it, not to accept that that's okay, because it's not.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, to be at peace with that, because that's all I have control over. That's all I can give.
Mm-hmm.
Nicki, I didn't give you the floor before
I feel like if to me, I felt like I asked myself, what did I want as a nurse? And it did have a lot to do with the word control. Like, I wanted control over my mind and my emotions, and how the job was affecting me and my body, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all the things. Like, I wanted that back. I felt robbed, and I was like, nope. When I reflected and asked myself, what is it I really want? I want to be in control.
And do you think that that's something possible?
Mm-hmm.
What are you in control of?
I'm in control of how my situation affects my mental state, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a choice how to respond to it and how it affects me positive or negatively.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, it might be a really, really bad situation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean I don't need support in that, to potentially, but I have the ability to train myself to rebound faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, this is good. This is good. And I think if, what's take a moment to speak to a nurse out there who's listening right now and tell her or him something that gives them hope and guidance to finding that inner control, that peace of mind, that acceptance of what is, not that it is, an acceptance of what should be. But take a moment to speak to somebody out there who's listening to us right now.
I guess I'll start. I just want to let you know, nurse, that you do have the capacity within you to feel at peace, feel within your chaos. You do have the capacity to walk away from your job for the day, get in your car and let it go and be present with your family. These are things that are possible, and I want to give you hope.
Thank you. I want to pause with that for just a second so that they hear it. Really important. Amy, what would you like to say?
Piggybacking on what Nicki said, I believe all of that 100%. Hey nurse, there's always hope. There's always a way to move forward. And by you learning how to take care of yourself first, and own your power and your struggles and acknowledge that, from this place is where you can step forward and make yourself better. And I also believe truly in my heart, 100% nurse, that it will be nurses that fix this, because nurses have the compassion, nurses have the skills to collaborate with teams and people and different professions across the board. It will be nurses that fix this, but we can't do that if we don't start with ourselves.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I'd like to say, nurse out there, as you listen to this, know first of all that you're not alone, and you don't need to be in a place of reiterating it all, because we know, because that doesn't give you the power to heal yourself. But you're not alone, and there are many nurses out there that have shifted into nurse coaching to help you, because they understand your role. They understand what you're going through. They've been there in their own way. Nobody's been there the same way. But there is a solution. And the solution begins with you. And of course, because you're so drowned in it, overwhelmed with it, nobody can ever expect you, as gifted and as talented and as giving as you are, nobody can ever expect you to do this on your own. That's why there's support. That's why we're out there. Alive in Healthcare has put together a group called Join the Movement, Nurses Reclaim Life. And this is all about nurses coming together globally to live and breathe positivity, possibility, and joy. I mean, this is, we're doing it first for ourselves. We're doing it then for our colleagues, and we're doing it for the profession. And I love where you went, Amy, with, that nurses will make the change. Mm-hmm. Yes. Enough of waiting for everyone else to change it for us. We need to do that. And we're not all going to do it the same way. Some of us will be advocates for our patients. Some of us will be talking to politicians. Some of us will be helping other nurses. We're all in it in different capacities. But this is the time. This is the time. I can't say that more. No more waiting. No more waiting until we lose another nurse.
Yeah.
Or a nurse loses herself.
Yeah.
I think that's really, I'm so grateful for this conversation today. And this is what I'm longing more for, is speaking to nurses like yourself who have been there, done that, moving forward, who can give those answers and solutions to the nurses. And have we touched enough on solutions that you feel, did you want to share more on your solutions, how you start to work there? Maybe you can share a little bit about that. Like, where do you start when you're talking to a nurse? What's the very first thing that you, sure, acknowledging where she's come from, listening. I think we've talked about that. But what else do you do? What are some of the tools that you use?
I think one of the most powerful, I think one of the most powerful tools, I think one of the most powerful tools is just curiosity. Just asking them, where are you? How did you get here? How is it going? And what do you want? Those are powerful questions to be led through, and then to just allow them space to feel that question and then think about that question and then vocalize their answer. Like, that's an entire process in and of itself.
Yeah. And what I love about that is you're meeting the needs of being heard, and what
I wanted to say.
Caring. I mean, they don't feel cared out there for the most part. They feel like people don't care about them, but somebody's sitting there and caring about them. Whoa, what a yeah, mind-blowing, isn't it, for somebody who hasn't seen that for a while?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people end up saying, wow, I've never really felt this listened to. When you really ask those powerful questions. And really digging into, there's this whole movement I feel like that has really exploded after 2020 of self-care, whether it's in nursing or the
Yeah.
whole everything, self-care, but really asking ourselves, what does that actually mean to care for myself? And that is a whole bunch that can be unpacked. Because at first we're caring for ourselves. If that's our, you know, it's like you can't really care for the person next to you. Put your oxygen mask on first, like in the airlines. That's the analogy I always give. Like, you got to put your oxygen mask on before you can put your neighbors on or help assist someone else. And that's the part we've forgotten in nursing or never even learned. It's just not have been a practice that we've had where we've been taught to do that. We've been like, give, but we're giving out of like no reserve. And so it takes a while to even come up to air, for air for that. So
I think what you're pointing
really
to
asking those questions.
Yeah. The questions caring is slowing that person down because they're always on that hamster wheel, running to the next thing, right? So I think I just had a client just yesterday, actually, as a matter of fact, who, wanted to know how to get out of this profession and what's the next job. And meanwhile, this person is just so burnt out, ill, like not well, not sleeping for months. And my response was, before you can even make any decisions, you need to first stop and slow the process and do the self-care and work on your basic human needs.
Yes, Maslow's hierarchy is always where I start with nurses.
Yes. I mean,
we got to start at the bottom.
How many of those nurses are holding their breath? I mean, seriously, breathe first. Are you getting enough water? Are you getting proper nutrition? Are you getting the sleep? Like, these are the basic needs that you need to first work on as a foundation before you can even think about. It's
really simple, but
it's
not. It's not simple.
No, you're absolutely right. It's not simple. We've been there. And, I actually, when I was in my own burnout, I actually took 6 months where I told my family I was doing Project Lil, and it was all about, me stepping away and working on myself. And my first hour, I realized, oh, I got full permission to look after myself, and now I have nobody to blame. It was like,
I mean,
I was responsible for my own success in this, and it was mind-blowing how that was my biggest lesson. But yeah, it's crazy.
Did you have a coach through that?
I did. Yes, I did, actually. I did have a coach through that. Absolutely. Because it's so, and I still have a coach today, doing this for like 25 plus years. I still have a coach today because it's amazing what I can help others do. And then I need that help too, because it's not easy to do those things alone. You need somebody to look through that lens and say, do you see what I see? Have you heard yourself?
Yeah. Yes.
It's like,
yes.
Yeah. But it's a gift. It's all a gift.
I have a coach. Do you have a coach, Amy?
I do have a coach.
Yeah, there you go. The world of coaches.
Yeah.
The nurses are becoming coaches. And I think at heart, nurses actually have that coaching ability right from the... We
already are.
Yes. Yeah. The things we do with our patients, and we just need to spread that out to ourselves and to our colleagues. More loving. Human connection, I think, is the very first piece, but it starts with us.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, I am thrilled having had this conversation with you guys. I am putting a call out there for any other nurses or, health professionals that, care about what nurses want and helping nurses get through these challenging times, to reach out to me and come on to a show and let's talk. Let's have that conversation and give some ideas. Let's inspire at least that one person out there who's listening, to give them the hope and the change. We need each other. And so I just love you guys. I'm so thrilled to have you. And thank you. Any closing words that you want to say before you go?
I just want to reiterate kind of what we landed on before, just that nurses have the power. Nurses have the knowledge and the power to change this, to right this ship, but it's going to take time and resources and nurses at all levels. But I believe 100% in nurses.
Yeah, and the nurse committed to herself, himself, whatever. The commitment that you make to yourself is where the change will start.
All begins.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my nurse friends out there, if you want to know more about Nicki and about Amy or about myself and Live in Healthcare, please reach out and we will give you the information to connect you guys. It's important we all resonate with different people, and so if there's somebody here that just spoke to you in your heart, please reach out and we will connect you guys. Okay, so we love you. Keep doing the work that you're doing, but do it first for yourself.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, guys.